So the problem with this is that if we take our trusty old tape, hit play, you'll actually see the counter works for a moment anyway.
Despite legions of law enforcement officers
and then it stops. And the reason it's doing that is, for whatever reason, in play mode, the take-up spool isn't engaging. Now it's fast forwarding and rewinding just fine. And we're even getting a real-time counter in fast forward and rewind. But just when it goes into the play mode is where the problem happens. So this is the pinch roller assembly, AC control head, and this guy comes down. When you pop in the tape, shove the tape in now, show you that the pinch roller assembly, it's on a little mechanism, comes down and then goes forward.
Track in with the guy in the truck.
And as you can see, as it attempted to play the tape just spooled up over there. And I'll show you again real quickly. Watch it. You'll see it.
Burns when he was by a building.
Okay, so that's the problem, and you can also see the take-up reel not taking up. Just sort of sitting there.
He was by a building
That's the problem. Let's eject. Now, here's something a lot of you have probably never seen. Or some of you who used to be in the biz probably have. This is a skeleton cassette. And this is real handy for wanting to see what's going on underneath the cassette. But you don't want to have that pesky cassette in the way. So, a few manufacturers devised this little gizmo. And it's a very handy tool. I don't think you can get them anymore. I'd be hard-pressed to find one anywhere, fortunately. Okay, well, another take, and had to use two hands to get it to happen, but as you can see, the skeleton cassette is now in there. We have access to the supply and take-up reels, and so we have a better idea to see what's going on. So, and see, it's just not quite engaging. Sometimes it's engaging, and most of the times it's not. Okay, now we're in play mode. And this little gear is supposed to be engaged. The take-up reel is right underneath here. See my screwdriver? The take-up reel is right there. That's the take-up reel. This is an intermediate gear that hits the take-up reel, and that's supposed to be engaged and making the take-up reel do its thing, and that's not happening. It's sort of happening a little bit, but not completely. It's not engaged. So I'm gonna do is take this off, and we'll get a better idea what's happening underneath here. I've removed a couple items, most notably an intermediate gear that was here to here. Now, prior to me pulling this off, I was under the impression that it was a single solid gear, which it turned out that's not the case. It was this. Okay, this is a mirror that reflects back to this little photodiode here. That photodiode tells the microcomputer inside the VCR that it's turning. And that really is just covering up this whole clutch pack. This is another little clutch pack that I didn't know about. So I think what it is a regulator to regulate the amount of torque going to the take-up reel. So, of course, I had to try and take it apart and process it. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get it back together properly. I could try, or I could try getting an older VCR. This, as you cannot see, it's an old model AG-1830. If memory serves me correctly, it might have the part I need. So hold on while I take the screws out, and we'll see. Okay, well, I just took out the screws, and here's the grand unveiling. Let's see, and we have G chassis. Yes, indeedy. Identical to the AG-W1. Here's that main thing that I messed up before, and the intermediate gear that I need is right there. There's the take-up reel on the AG-1830. I'm hoping that there was nothing wrong with the take-up on this, and otherwise I'll run into the same problem. But if that not be the case, everything else should be the same. So there you go. A lot of Panasonic chassis were identical. A lot of this G chassis were all over the place. So, hey, if you need spare G chassis parts, then if you have an AG-1830 hanging around, then there you go. So I'm going to take out what I need and put it back into that, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so here's what that little clutch pack looks like when it's assembled and hasn't been taken apart by a curious technician. So this feels real good. It's got a nice amount of tension here, and this is what is apparently, to my mind, would be what's regulating the take-up reel, the amount of torque to the take-up reel. So, yep, this should be the culprit. And don't try and take it apart, because I managed to snap this little retainer. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it back together again. I was trying before. It didn't look very good. So, yeah, this is a interesting problem. If you need to get one of these new, I'll see if I can find the part number for you and take a look around from there if there's anything on eBay or any other parts sources. Not very likely. You know, this may be your best parts sources and an older VCR. Okay, oh, and by the way, so when you're looking to install this little clutch assembly, so that you don't stress it and break it apart like I did the replacement, by bending this way over underneath this little part in here to get it underneath, because it does need to fit underneath that metal piece there. The easier way of doing this is to put it together like so. Get this little tab over here, which is this piece. Alright, so you get that down underneath there, and you can finagle it in pretty easily with a screwdriver. I'll see if I can do this live. And to push on it a little bit, and I'm having a hard time holding the iPhone and doing this at the same time, but sorry. Let's see if we can get this into view. Okay, I just pushed it forward a little bit, and it's sort of going into place, but not quite. Take it out, push it in, take it out, push it in, and there we go. Seems to have gotten into place or not. It feels awfully tight now. But it could be that that's how I took it apart. I think that's what it was. I think this, because I'm in stock mode, but the tape is in and the cassette is down. So I determined this was the best way to get out this and this without this little slider bracket being in the way. Otherwise, when I was in eject mode, this was in the way. I couldn't get it out. So we'll get the clips back in and give it a shot. Okay, by the way, I was wrong. That little tab being down here from stop mode, not good. It's now straight across. I had to bend it a little bit to get it up in there and over this little piece of metal right there. So it's over that, and now things are moving a little more freely. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so I've got the assembly in place. By the way, just wanted to note, this circuit board I had dangling down off, when it's hinging around, this area here is getting a little stressed out and could bump up against some metal pieces here. You don't want that to happen, so let it sit on top of something like a glass I've been drinking out of all day. Okay, so just a little helpful note there. Power to the VCR. Okay, so let it go through its paces. Okay, so it's reset itself into stop mode. Hitting play. And what's happening?
Violence has touched neighborhoods all across Los Angeles, including the fabled Hollywood area. Stores bordering the Walk of Fame along Hollywood Boulevard are among those that have been looted.
We turned down the LA riots here.
Other cities across the nation. We're getting late reports of demonstrations in St. Louis, Kansas City, and Salt Lake City. Earlier in Atlanta, a group of young blacks...
My test tape happens to be an old tape of the LA riots. 20-year-old entertainment. But there's the gear, that one you see moving slowly. It seems to be moving rather nicely now. And the tape hasn't stopped. And it's looking good. I should show you some tape of the old LA riots here.
A peaceful rally in Cleveland was interrupted Thursday by a motorist who drove by twice, waving a swastika flag.
Oh my!
Chased, but he managed to escape by driving away in the wrong lane. Cleveland police eventually caught and arrested the man. The mayor said, despite the ugly incident, the real story is that people have pulled together peacefully. This Safeway Market was among the 900.
Okay, well, enough about old LA riot news. We're going back to the task at hand, which is this VCR that apparently seems to be working now. The gear is moving. We have take up, and I'm happy because I can now pack this thing back up and get it back to work. So there we go. Another successful VCR repair by me, Joe, and I'm at I Repair Electronics here on the YouTube channel.